Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Lambon, and I'm from the Ministry of Defence Strategic Supplier Management team, and we're based in Abbey Wood in Bristol. So this presentation I'm going to deliver today is all about accessing procurement opportunities with the Ministry of Defence. So I'll talk about the various places that you can find opportunities, where to find the policy and guidance that governs our procurement and processes, our new SME action plan, share some tips and guidance for SMEs, and also cover the approach to innovation. There will be time after the presentation to answer any questions, so please feel free. So to begin, here are some facts and figures that illustrate the magnitude of our procurement activity. We are the UK industry's largest single customer. We buy everything from warships and helicopters all the way down to low-value consumable items and everything in between. This means there are opportunities for countless suppliers to contract with us either directly or via the supply chain. As you can see from the slide on your screen, we have a huge planned spend for equipment and support over the next decade. The majority of opportunities will be via our supply chain, working with our larger suppliers. So this slide here shows the different areas that we work in. So we buy a diverse range of equipment, products and services through a variety of organisations. So through DE&S, Defence Equipment and Support, we buy equipment and support, which includes ships, aircrafts, vehicles and weapon systems. We buy all our infrastructure through DIO, the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, which includes construction and soft and hard facilities management. We buy most of our technology through DD, Defence Digital, which includes network services, cloud and digital, and also software. We buy common goods and services through Crown Commercial Service, CCS, who supply this across government through their frameworks. We also buy scientific and technical support through DSTL, or the Defence Scientific and Technology Laboratory. We also buy commodities such as food, clothing, medical and general supplies, oils and gases via Team Leidos. You can find more about who we are and what we buy via the Defence Sourcing Portal, the DSP. More on that in a couple of slides' time. So as you may already know, the MOD runs several large, complex projects. The size and complexity means that we need to work closely with a number of major suppliers to ensure delivery of the defence programme. This slide on your screen shows 19 of our largest suppliers that we work with regularly, who are termed the strategic suppliers. As I mentioned earlier, most of our procurement opportunities exist within the supply chain, around 75%. As this is the case, we would encourage you to look at the highlighted suppliers' websites, most of which have dedicated pages of information on describing how to access their procurement opportunities and how to get in touch with them. We're also encouraging our major suppliers to share their market engagement activities with us so that we can promote them out to industry, and also to advertise subcontracting opportunities more widely, including on the Defence Sourcing Portal. So this slide highlights where to look for our procurement opportunities. So we advertise all of our MOD procurement opportunities over the value of £10,000 on the Supplier Portal, the Defence Sourcing Portal. You can register and view all UK MOD opportunities completely free of charge. The DSP is the MOD's strategic platform, which covers the following. So pre-qualification for opportunities, tendering, evaluation, and e-auction events will all be run through the platform. You may have previously been familiar with Defence Contracts Online, which was our platform we used before DSP. This was closed down and replaced by DSP in 2021. So if you were previously signed up on that system, it's worth checking DSP and getting yourself signed up on there as well to make sure you're accessing all the latest opportunities. There is guidance on the site which will help you to navigate around and shows you how to use the search facility. And there's useful information and guidance on topics such as cyber essentials, defence exports, and access to innovation support and funding. You can view central government and wider public sector opportunities over £10,000 on Contracts Finder, which includes Crown Commercial Services frameworks. Again, access to this is completely free of charge. You can use the Find a Tender service to search and apply for high-value contracts, usually above £118,000, in the UK's public and utilities sectors. Find a Tender replaced the EU's Tender Electronic Daily from the 1st of January 2021 for high-value contracts in the UK. We're also increasingly using our Twitter channel, @DefenceProc, and our new LinkedIn page, Defence Procurement, at the site shown on the slide, to promote industry days, events, and market engagement opportunities. So please do give us a follow on your preferred choice of social media. Just a word as well on pipelines. So DIO have recently published and recently refreshed their pipelines for procurement, which is an 18-month forward look on all procurement opportunities over £2 million. There is an MOD-wide pipeline that is also imminent, and we will be publicising this through the channels I've already mentioned. If you scan the QR code on your screen, it will take you to our Doing Business with Defence brochure. So this goes into a lot more detail about the topics that I'm covering today, and also has our contact email address for our help desk. So the next slide talks about our procurement approach. So as a public sector organisation, we procure in a different way to industry. We are subject to procurement law, which is driven by European directives, implemented in the UK through the Public Contracts Regulations, PCR, and the Defence and Security Public Contracts Regulations, DSPCR. So these govern our policies and processes, and there are different procedures applicable to each set of regulations. What this essentially means is that we use competition as the default position, unless there are reasons for a single source procurement due to national security, urgent operational requirements, or where there is genuinely only one supplier in the market. We set our requirements for what we buy, and we set objective tender selection criteria. We are fair and transparent and will be held accountable for procurement decisions in a way that the private sector may not be. It's important to remember that the MOD does not operate preferred supplier lists. And what I've mentioned on this slide here should be caveated by saying that procurement reform is ongoing, so it is subject to change in the near future. But again, more information will be coming out on that. So this next slide is a very basic example of a typical MOD tender process. So we advertise our requirements, for example, on the defence sourcing portal I mentioned earlier. Suppliers can bid for work and may complete a pre-qualification questionnaire. MOD will then invite suppliers to tender and review bids independently in order to select a supplier for contract award. Should also mention at this point that feedback is available for unsuccessful bidders, so you are able to understand how you can improve your bid for next time. So that gives you an idea of where to find opportunities, but for specific guidance on how we conduct, govern and control our defence acquisition process, please access the Knowledge in Defence site. This provides guidance on commercial, engineering, logistics, finance, and is the primary bearer of all policy. Knowledge in Defence is updated regularly to reflect any news and new updates to policy. It's a useful library of information that's used by both internal staff and for suppliers looking to bid for MOD opportunities. A good example of a hot topic you might want further information on would be social value. So if you head to the Knowledge in Defence site, to the Commercial Toolkit area, and search for social value, that will bring up the main topic page, which contains links to the policy statement and the Cabinet Office social value model. This can help you understand how it will be implemented in MOD contracts going forward. So we want to encourage smaller businesses to work with us and increase the diversity of our defence supply chain. So the Defence SME Action Plan is published on gov.uk with ministerial endorsement. The action plan has recently been refreshed and the updated one was published in January and can be accessed on gov.uk or from Googling MOD SME Action Plan. This plan reinforces our commitment to the SME agenda, aiming to increase our overall spend with small to medium-sized enterprises. In financial year 17-18, our spend with SMEs was 16.5%, an increase of 3% on the year before. 18-19, the spend was 19.3%, and in 19-20, it was 21.3%, so we're seeing a year-on-year increase. The exercise has also been completed for 2021, and we're waiting for Cabinet Office to publish those figures, which should be later this month. The action plan outlines the initiatives that have been implemented since the release of the first action plan in 2019. It shines a spotlight on success stories of SMEs working with the MOD, and it details 13 key commitments across 3 key areas that will be tracked as they progress. These commitments are shown on the slide. To drive improvement for SMEs, the Defence Suppliers Forum has set up an SME working group. The Defence Suppliers Forum, or DSF, is co-chaired by the Secretary of State for Defence and a nominated industry chief executive. The DSF has a number of working groups for identifying and actioning areas of improvement between MOD and the UK defence industry, which report to the DSF executive group. So the SME working group is developing and managing a focused programme of work to deliver improved access to opportunities for small businesses in the defence supply chain and also contribute to the aspirations of the SME Action Plan. So the SME Working Group has considered feedback on the barriers that SMEs face when doing business with defence and has identified 3 priority themes, which are the focus of 3 separate work streams that report into the working group. Those 3 are frameworks, improving access to opportunities, and measures and transparency. The overarching aim of each work stream is to address the challenge or problem statement identified, consider underlying causes with supporting evidence, recommend workable solutions, including quick wins, which will make the greatest difference, identify risks, constraints, and success measures, develop action plans, and take action to deliver against the agreed outputs. So the final element of this presentation is about innovation. We want to encourage innovation and attract new and non-traditional suppliers into defence. Defence Innovation Priorities launched in September 2019, and there is a document on gov.uk that highlights the key areas around defence innovation. The priorities will be used to inform policy, strategy and plans, shaping how the department understands and exploits innovation. It will also focus innovation investment, shaping how the Defence Innovation Fund is allocated. The Defence Innovation Initiative was launched in 2016, and the Defence and Security Accelerator, or DASA, and the Defence Innovation Fund are both key parts of defence activity. The Defence Innovation Fund will provide £800 million over a 10-year period, mostly invested through DASA. DASA hold regular themed competitions to address specific challenges and offers funding, as well as an enduring challenge on a more generic basis, and an open call, which welcomes ideas on a broader scale. More information and contact details about all the initiatives run by DASA can be found on the gov.uk website on the DASA page. Innovation hubs have also been established in all the frontline commands to act as catalysts for innovation. The hubs can also be contacted via DASA on the gov.uk website. Innovate UK is the final element on the slide, and this is an agency sponsored by the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, or BEIS, and they run competitions for funding in different industry sectors. They also provide business advice for SMEs if this is what you're looking for. So that is the final content from the presentation. Thanks everybody for listening. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them now, or if you have a question that you think of later on, please feel free to drop an email into our multi-user email address, which you can find on the slide right now. Thanks very much for listening. Thank you to everybody that joined for the presentation. I hope you found it useful. We do now have time for Q&A. And just a reminder for those that have questions and haven't asked them already, you can put them in the right-hand side in the live Q&A tab. We've started to get a few come in already, so I'll start with those. The first question is there any support or training available on the portal that MOD uses? So the answer is yes, there is. So the Defence Sourcing Portal, as I mentioned in the presentation, is the main portal that MOD use. And if you access that site, on the front page, there is some drop-down tabs that have useful information and guidance, not just for the portal, but wider for kind of MOD procurement as well. So you should be able to navigate yourself around the site. And it is very easy to sign up, just takes a couple of minutes to do, just some basic company information required. And then you can access that training to help you a bit further. We do recognise that kind of guidance and training is something that can always be improved, and we do get feedback on that. And as a result of that, we are developing now some new instructional videos that will inform people of how to use the DSP, but also how to access other opportunities for MOD and access the kind of communications information that we're putting out. So it will talk about the various platforms that we use, the various channels, so that you can make sure you're always getting the most up-to-date information. The next question I've got here is, do you call off any frameworks in the UK or in Scotland for services, or do you always go out to bid yourselves? So it's a great question. We do use frameworks as well as direct contracts. The majority of frameworks I think that MOD would use would be Crown Commercial Services, so CCS, if you're familiar with that. You can visit their website. They've got a large amount of information on there about the current opportunities that are live and also forthcoming ones as well. So it's worth bookmarking that site and checking regularly to see if there's anything that might be of relevance to your company. So obviously those will be wider use than just MOD, so it might not just be MOD using them because they are CCS frameworks and not run by MOD, but there are certain ones on there that the MOD use quite frequently where appropriate. There are also MOD specific frameworks, ones that have been set up by MOD or one of the areas of MOD, like I mentioned earlier. So DSTL, for example, the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, have got their own frameworks, and they will be advertised through the portals, as I've mentioned. So again, it's worth checking both the mod-specific defence sourcing portal, but also CCS if you are interested in frameworks and joining those. There has been a lot of work going on in the SME working group that I mentioned previously in the presentation. So one of the work streams of that working group is specifically for frameworks, because again, it's recognized that it's a bit of a minefield to deal with frameworks, a lot of different terms and conditions. Where do you find them? How do you get on them? And how do you find that information? So the kind of main output of that work stream will be a library of MOD frameworks pulled together from across the business, and also including some of those CCS frameworks that I mentioned that are used most commonly by MOD. So work is ongoing on that to pull that data from across what is quite a wide procurement area of the business. And so that work has begun, and we're hoping to release a prototype onto gov.uk in the coming months, and that will be updated over time as we pull more information in about frameworks. So there's a lot of work going on to improve the picture for frameworks and make those more accessible. So the next one down is, what is the number one barrier for small businesses when bidding for a place on frameworks? So I guess the thing with barriers for SMEs is that's kind of the focus really of what's being looked at in the SME working group. So that was the first question really, was what are those barriers, and identifying those ones that are most common for SMEs, as well as other businesses that might be bidding in. So I think the three work streams, I've already mentioned the frameworks one, so that will look at the issues that people find when trying to get onto frameworks, i.e. not knowing information about them, the terms and conditions, and sort of not having enough information and guidance about frameworks. We've also got measures and transparency. So again, a major barrier that we hear about is the MOD not being transparent enough, and showing or advertising as widely as they should, or making things as accessible as they should. And the third is improving access. And so in line with those, we are trying to improve that at all times in terms of providing better guidance. And as I mentioned, we are doing some videos around how better to access the system and to access the procurement information for MOD, to try and improve that for SMEs. So those three work streams were identified as the largest barriers. So to give you a slightly wider than the question, there is three, and work is ongoing to improve those. But if you're able to access the brochure that I provided a link to in the slides, that gives you a really good overview of all the different areas. So it's where to find the opportunities, the guidance that you might be interested in finding, and also bits about innovation, and also dealing with our strategic suppliers. So there's kind of something for everybody there, depending on what kind of company you are, what you sell, what product offering you've got, where you might see yourself in the supply chain if you're a direct bidder into MOD, or if you see yourself further down the supply chain as an SME, perhaps subcontracting to one of those companies. There's something for everybody in there that you can kind of target as a way in. So the next question is, why doesn't the MOD use PCS for tenders? So I'm not massively familiar with PCS myself, but as I understand it, that is for Scottish companies or for Scottish opportunities. So with MOD being obviously wider than that, we tend to advertise through the defence sourcing portal instead, and through Contracts Finder, because they are much wider. And so it's not just for Scottish companies, not to say that it will discount Scottish companies. We encourage companies from everywhere, and that's kind of why we're coming and doing these kinds of presentations really. But it's just seen as I think a better method of having the defence sourcing portal and also Contracts Finder, because they are accessed more widely, not just across the UK, but also international companies as well, who we encourage to bid in for work. And the next question down is, what are your top tips for a first-time bidder with the MOD? So I think getting yourself clued up as much as you can really on the processes of how things work. And you can do that through looking at the guidance that I've mentioned that's on the defence sourcing portal, and also by logging in through the Knowledge in Defence site. So that has all the policy, all the guidance that you can find on kind of MOD contracts and how they're put together and how MOD projects are run. And I guess the key thing with Knowledge in Defence is that it's not only accessed by suppliers for suppliers, but it's also used internally. So the information there is completely accurate. It's the information that's used by delivery teams when they're putting that contract together. So it gives you that kind of wider understanding of why MOD tender the way they do, why the terms and conditions that have been used have been inserted into that contract, and why the process runs as it does, and gives you an overview of kind of those steps that you run through. So I think if you are a first-time bidder, it's not a process you've gone through before, it is worth having a look at those bits of guidance and getting yourself clued up on it, because it will really, really help in understanding the logic of why the process works as it does, the kind of constraints that we're held to, and the different elements of how that procurement will come together. I think the other side of it in terms of top tips, again, I refer back to the presentation. There's a Cabinet Office guide for smaller businesses, and that's got a list of top tips of what to do if you are bidding in for the first time into public contracts. And again, a lot of that is relevant to MOD specific as well as wider government opportunities. So it's worth having a look at that as well. Got another question in here. We have a vehicle decontamination system we would like to present. Where should we first go to show the system and proof of efficacy? So I think the thing with MOD contracts and a lot of sort of wider public sector is that we obviously have to advertise our requirements. So it kind of works the opposite way around. We know that a lot of companies would like to come in and present to MOD or to the users, but that is often not possible due to the way that we work. We obviously have to be open and fair and transparent. So requirements as and when they come up will be advertised. There is more being done to try and bring companies in to the kind of requirement setting phase. So as part of what DASA do, the Defence and Security Accelerator that I mentioned previously, they are setting up some industry advisory groups, and there was a pilot run, I think, in Army for that, which brought together companies, SMEs, it brought together larger companies, brought together people from academia and others from within the Ministry of Defence to kind of help with that requirement setting to ensure that what we are getting is the best of what's on the market. And so it does provide that opportunity to help shape a requirement for what is coming up. In terms of other ways of trying to show your system or what your products might be, again, if it is an innovative solution, something brand new that an idea you've had that you've created and you're looking to get it to market, DASA do hold competitions for funding to try and get you to a position where that product can become a reality. And there's also something to look out for that are also run across the MOD for various things would be market engagement days, or meet the buyer days, or something similar, where a certain area of MOD would invite companies to come in and showcase their products and offerings. And so look out for those, again, through the communications channels that I've mentioned before. So the announcements on the DSP, but also through our Twitter and our Defence Procurement LinkedIn page, where we'll try and share as much information as we can about what's coming up. And similarly, for our strategic suppliers that we work with, we're encouraging them to share with us their market engagement, so that we can share it with industry in that one-stop shop portal that's the DSP. And we've just got about a minute left, so I will do a final question, which is, do you award contracts outside of LIDOS? So yes, we do. I assume you mean for kind of clothing and the bits that we do through LIDOS. So the majority of that would sit under that contract, but we do have other requirements as well, discrete requirements that may not fall under the scope of that contract, and they would be advertised through the DSP as mentioned. So I think we're just about to run out of time, so I will leave it there. Thank you for your questions and for attending the presentation today.